Okay, today I'm going to be talking about the album at the beginning of my collection, Abba Arrival. Oh, it's a bit shiny there, so I'll take it out of its plastic sleeve, just so you can see the amazing album cover there, which truly is what probably the first thing you see if you bought this back in the day. And it doesn't just end there. Got another great shot of them. Agneta and is in bare feet, Frida in boots, and as the sunset shot, and then on the back, the helicopter going away. So, yes, well, what it is about this album? I think this album is their best, purely because it's right in the middle of their career. It still has the incredible sort of sound of natural instruments, and the session musicians in this band are fantastic, and Benny hasn't quite got obsessed with the synthesizers yet. There's a bit of synthesizer action in it, but it's not as overwhelming as on the albums The Visitors and some of their later singles and so on. So this album to me, I think, is sort of right in the middle, and it's like their Revolver or Rubber Soul, if you want to go that far, even their Sgt. Pepper's. It really doesn't have well, there's one bad song on it, so let's get that out of the way. It's got Dum Dum Diddle, Dum Dum Diddly Dee, Fiddly Doo, about the frustration a woman feels for her husband or partner who can't stop playing on his violin and seems to spend most of his time giving his attention and desires and affection to the violin instead of her. So I think we all understand that story. Maybe we don't, but anyway, let's kind of, I think the one thing that song's got for it, it's sort of got a jaunty, fast pace to it, so it can just breeze on by and it doesn't ruin the pacing of the whole entire album. So I'd like to start just with the first track, or the first three tracks I think are amazing, an amazing opening for an album. So we've got Then I Kissed the Teacher, Dancing Queen, and My Love, My Life. So obviously everyone's familiar with Dancing Queen, which again, I think it started off with, it had a title something like, not Back Off Boogaloo, but The Boogie, or it was a straightforward sort of disco track and instrumental, and then they added the vocals and the melody. And the melody's extraordinary, the harmonic changes, the key changes, the movements, the way it's structured, and it builds and builds and builds, this state of euphoria rising up and up and up, which I'm sure I don't need to tell you about, but we need to emphasize what are the good things about this album. So that track itself is probably one of their biggest singles, and rightly so. It's an amazing track that's, yeah, kind of like the kind of music that you might imagine yourself getting as you walk into heaven or something, and you're walking up the marble staircase to St. Peter, and you know there's a fanfare. This would be the fanfare. You know, you're walking up there. It's an incredible piece of music. So, and again, the singing of Agneta and Frida is extraordinary. Both their voices on this album are really interesting to contrast them. Obviously, I think everyone has a bit of a soft spot for Agneta rather than Frida, although she's an incredible singer. There's a melancholy, I guess, in Agneta's voice, and that is incredibly beguiling and attractive, and a depth to her singing perhaps that Frida doesn't have. But Frida's singing on this album is very, very good. I think her best vocal is on Knowing Me, Knowing You, which is also on the first side, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the first track, When I Kissed the Teacher, probably wouldn't get away with that track now in the current political identity politics that's going on, but back then it was an innocent sort of song, and I think that they both vocals are on that, but I think Agneta's got the main vocal on that. It actually says, all vocals of course were sung by herself, solo parts on My Love, My Life, and When I Kissed the Teacher by Agneta. Yeah, so there you go. It's a great vocal, a great song, very funny, very bashful, naive, innocent sort of 70s song. yeah, just to specify, I think this album came out in 1976, so it's pretty much slam bang in the middle of the 70s. So yes, that also tells you the optimism of the 70s after the sort of spiritual crisis that happened after Altamont and the end of the 60s. There's sort of a bounce back, even more materialistic rather than spiritual, the spiritual nature of the counterculture in the 60s, but there's still something, and again, this album really typifies that sort of move away from spiritual, soul-searching, introspective songwriting to just outright pop fun. Maybe what the Frankfurt theorist Adorno would call vapid pap music or popular music as being a form of escapism. It would be difficult to argue that this is something else than that, but I would argue it has a transcendent aspect in that it's certainly spiritual and it's got uplifting qualities to it. And we don't want to get too snobby and pretentious here. So Then I Kissed the Teacher, that's a real kind of burst of bubblegum at the beginning. And then you've got Dancing Queen. And then the third track, which I often overlook, My Love, My Life, which has beautiful harmonies on it. I think we're inspired by 10cc's I'm Not in Love, written around the same time. And that's a great track, again with Agnieszka's vocal on it. And yeah, those three songs are an amazing beginning. And then we do get stuck on Dum Dum Diddly Do, Diddly Diddly Dee, which sort of takes away a bit of the strength of the first side. But as I say, jaunty, quick, you can get through it. And then Knowing Me, Knowing You, which is a great vocal from Frida and has a great sort of classic 70s sound with the keyboards on that. Very understated verses and a nice sort of build up to the chorus. And then the chorus is obviously immediately recognisable if you've been listening to radio the last 30 years or 40 years. Or if you tend to turn on Go 104 occasionally. So, yeah, what an incredible side. So, obviously the melodic strength here from Benny and Bjorn's songwriting is really evident. And on the previous albums, they did have quite a few sort of filler tracks and throwaway songs, or just ones where you'd sort of cringe a little bit. I do, ring, ring, some of those ones. So this is certainly more sophisticated, if you want to use that word, at least with the instrumentation, if not the lyrics, but at least with the instrumentation. The second side starts off with Money, Money, Money. Again, you probably heard that. Again, that's not going to make Adorno, if he was still alive, change his mind and say, there's something very introspective and challenging about this song, and it's going to help us move out of our false conscious state and into a wider recognition of the cash nexus that we're trapped under in the capitalist system. Although it does talk about money, there is a bit of that. Maybe Adorno would have been impressed. So, and again, money, money, money must be funny in a rich man's world. Don't think we haven't all thought of that. So, and Frida's vocal on this is fantastic. And to me, it's got a bit of a music hall type of musical sensibility to it, which I'm not fond of musicals, just getting that out of the way. But I don't mind this. Good opening track for the second side. Then we've got That's Me, and I sort of throw that in with Why Did It Have to Be Me? They're sort of fairly similar. Stig Anderson got a co-write on That's Me. Why Did It Have to Be Me? I think, who sings that? I think it's one of Bjorn sings that. Again, it's not a remarkable track, but it's sort of catchy. And then on the Australian release of this, which I've got here, and the New Zealand release, we have Fernando, which apparently wasn't on the UK or even the Swedish release. So maybe we're blessed, maybe we're not. I have a very ambivalent relationship with Fernando. It's got slightly cringy, I guess it's the lyrics, the main thing, but they sort of pull it off. It's enchanting. It really is enchanting in a ridiculous way. There's something in the air. Yeah, it's almost like a commercial, but again, I think that's Frida singing on that one. Oh no, it's both of them. Anyway, not my favourite track, but I think the album benefits having it on there. So yeah, not absolutely. And then to me, the last two tracks are fantastic, wonderful, cheesy. On the film, a lot of it was filmed in Australia. I think it opens with them doing Tiger, which is just a great silly song, and the female singers just pull it off so well. I think they're in Japanese kimonos or something on stage, and I am the tiger. So they really go for it. And another band singing that would look ridiculous. So purely those two girls at the front really pull it off. And it's got to be said that there's a real chemistry, obviously, between all four members, but there's a sort of Jungian, masculine, feminine, perfect balance, quaternity making up the four elements there. The two songwriters in the back, the two females up the front, sort of the id and the ego, or the idea of the intellect at the back, or not. I'm not splitting up the women and men into intellect and non-intellect. I'm just saying that there's a certain, I guess the men don't have the charisma. They certainly don't to be the front people. So they're sort of like, if you go to some of the commercial CD shops around here, they always have the women at the counter and the men out the back doing the stuff, finding the CDs and stacking shelves and stuff. I prefer to be out the front, to be personally. But there's a wonderful, and the fact that they were going out with each other is remarkable too. And obviously on the song "The Winner Takes It All," which I think is probably one of their best tracks, and will probably more likely be around 200 years from now, more so than a lot of well-received and critically well-received music that will be forgotten because it doesn't have that melody and it doesn't have that wonderful direct simplicity and that, I guess, a melancholy vocal of Agneta on that. That film clip's amazing too, but yeah, that's not on this album, but I still think this album is the best album they did. So, and the last track is Arrival, which is an instrumental that really, is not throwaway. I think it adds to the album. Again, so originally it was 5 tracks on each side, and we've got 6 tracks on the second side, 5 on the first, because Fernando's been added. So, and just looking back at that cover, that to me really sums up the 70s, and our very simplistic view of Sweden, perhaps. And look at that. Of course, I think they were all both reasonably happy in their relationships together at this album when this album came out. So it would only go downhill from here. But again, some great songwriting, the tension between all the relationships fraught with tension brought about, I would say, a step up in the lyrical writing from Bjorn on the later albums that this album doesn't have. But this album is just like a champagne supernova. It's just bubbly and bright and brilliant and, fantastic melodies and instrumentation. And the mixture of, as I said, the classic sort of 70s drums and bass and guitar and keyboard mixed in with synthesizers. And the double tracking of the two girls' voices is really well done. Some people say Agneta's voice is a bit shouty. Sometimes it is a bit shouty, but I love that. And Frida's much more understated in her singing. But together, the shouty and the understated make up this wonderful double tracked with the two of them sound that they're famous for. So I recommend this. I've got the album, but it has come out on CD as a deluxe edition. Again, you still get it's not as good in the smaller cover, but you still get the shot. Although, do you get the you get the inner shot there, and also more casual Abba just hanging out there on the back. Very Swedish looking. So the extra tracks on this, Fernando's added as an extra track on this, so we're originally on the Australian version, it's on the original. And Happy Hawaii, Banger Boomerang. Is that on this? No, it doesn't seem to be. And then on the DVD you get Abba Dabba Doo, which is a 1 hour television special. A lot of this stuff, unfortunately, is up on YouTube. Well, fortunately, is up on YouTube now. And there's other commercials and other things from the time, which is worth getting. And I'm sure it's been remastered. But yeah, the album still sounds fantastic. So if you can get that, I recommend that because you got the big cover, which you want. So that's A-B-B-A. So I'm at the beginning of my record collection. And I hope if you're thinking ABBA a bit superficial and trite, that maybe you'll adventure out and get Arrival. That's the album to start with. Okay, thank you.